what this is, a lot of it, say during matches, is the shout at the TV in a pub. You can't, you know whatever. But it goes straight to you in the same way that a tweet, what a lovely, it goes to you in the same intimate fashion as a nice comment. So on the one hand, it's completely like that. And I back to people, they say, oh, I'm sorry, I was drunk. I didn't think you'd see it or whatever. So on the one hand, you've got the impossibly anonymous. On the other hand, you've got the intimacy. And it's a really unusual thing. It's just strange. People say, well, don't read it then. I said, listen, in 4 lines, you can spot the word cunt very easily, actually. Sorry.
Brian, it's a real pleasure for me to be chatting to you. I'm interviewing you, which is really weird because
it's usually the other way around, isn't it? Or whatever.
Exactly, of course. Watched you, obviously listened to you commentate, so it is poacher turned gamekeeper, but it's not like that at all. So I really appreciate you chatting to me. One of the interesting things, having retired and doing a little bit of the media, like yourself, and doing a bit of the after dinner circuit, I don't want it to sound like it's patronising, because I get quite nervous right before I speak, before I interview. And when I was chatting to a few different people, they were like, oh, Brian Moore's the same. He gets nervous before he goes on stage. Or
oh, complete.
Why? How? Why?
Well, funnily enough, the more I've done, the worse it's got. And you wouldn't think that would be the case. And I've been thinking about it, and I can only think it comes from the pressure you put on yourself, the expectation you've got of your performance, but also this. I don't know if you've died, after dinner speaking. It's only happened to me 2 or 3 times in a long time. But when it happens, it is absolutely awful. The last time it happened to me, many years ago, I was shaking when I came out. And the thing is this, you don't know. You're in charge of your half of the gig. You can do your job. If you don't quite hit whatever the mark is with the audience and it doesn't go well, you can't control that. And so when you're going into it, you don't know. Chances are it will go well, but it might not. And each time it's successive. And also, depends what sort of professional standards you've got. Because I don't want people to come away from a speech thinking, I heard Brian Moore, it was okay. I want them to go away thinking, yeah, it was really good.
So it means something to you?
Yes, it means something. You know that bit 15 minutes before kickoff, when you just want to get out there and blow the whistle, it's fine. It's a bit like that. When the minute you stand up, you've got to do it, and it's okay, generally. But that bit before, I'd prefer just to walk in and just do it.
I'm exactly the same. Rugby.
Yeah.
Let's talk about rugby. Let's talk about the state of the game at the minute, both from a financial standpoint, but where we find ourselves in professionalism. I think it'd be quite interesting to hear your views. A guy who played rugby when rugby was
Well, look,
rugby.
Jim, people won't know this and they won't care today. I can genuinely claim to be one of the people who pushed hardest in England for the game to go pro. I knew I wasn't going to benefit. I had 1 year in the pro era with Richmond, but it wasn't for me. It was just because it was unfair. If it had stayed, the only people who make money at RFU and it goes to grassroots, absolutely fine. But that wasn't what was happening. And it was going to go professional, so it wasn't a case of is it a good thing? It was going to happen. It was just the way it should happen. And had it not been for Dudley Wood, who was the person who fucked all this up, had it not been for that, England could have had an orderly central contract like everyone else. This club-country divide, which is the main impediment to getting a global calendar, because in England and France, there's a big club presence. Elsewhere, it doesn't happen, so they can't manoeuvre it around. The unions can't manoeuvre that. And they're always going to be stuck with this unless they can say to the top 14 owners and the Premiership owners, here's your cash back, we'll take it all, but you can't afford to do that. I spoke to Rob Andrew, and we worked this out because I didn't believe him, and he's right. We reckon over 25 years, the Premiership owners have lost nearly £1 billion. Now, as a revenue model, you can't keep doing that. And it's no good looking at football, because football is a complete outlier. Look, Saracens, many great things, many bad things, but what you can not say about Nigel Ray is that he's been in it for cash. He's just handed over money and lost it and supported the game. And I like Nigel, he's a philanthropist as well. But you can't rely on that. You know, you need to have a balanced game. And if they don't get to that, and we're filming this at the time of COVID, and it's become stark now because it's absolutely germane. But this should be the catalyst for them to say, right, when we come out of this, whatever is left is going to be sustainable, because we can't carry on like this. But we are close. We are really close to it.
So it's almost like the hand's been forced, it seems. It was something was brewing.
Yeah.
And I suppose that brings me on to the next question. You've answered a lot within what you've just spoken about there. I think it's really interesting. It's what everyone's speaking about currently is around these global superstars that we're now seeing unfold. Maro Itoje's, Owen Farrell's, Billy Vunipolas talking about the England players and the money that these players now have received the sponsorship deals. I mean, for me personally, I've always seen it as a positive thing, having these superstars and watching Cheslin Colby do his thing over in France and Sia Khaleesi in South Africa, that we're actually expanding out with of rugby to try and grow the game globally.
I don't have any problem. Look, players will try and earn as much as they can, and the agents will do that, and that's their job, that's their duty. Look, why should Owen Farrell and his agent will say, why is it solely down to me to have a conscience about the sport of the game? I understand that. So it's for the RFU, Premiership Sciences, to find ways to sit down with players and say, look, these are the figures. About 6-7 years ago, the number of players on over 400,000 it was just into the teens. There are now hundreds. Rugby is a very young game, and what it can't do is model itself on football, because football is not normal. It's a global game, it's a national game, and it's awash with cash, huge awash with cash, at the top end anyway. Rugby is nowhere near that. For example, the whole of the Premiership's turnover is the same as Everton Football Club, one club.
I want to talk a little bit about how players are now living the good, the bad and the ugly through social media.
Thank God it wasn't around in my day. It were allowed you. Thank God it wasn't. But for all the benefits, it is there. And it's pointless them saying it's not fair, because it is what it is. The world is what it is. Knowing that, don't do stupid things, because you've got to assume that it will be there. I mean, I said to my kids on, just would you be happy for this picture to be on the front of a newspaper? I said, it will only be there because you're my daughter or whatever, but would you be happy? And if you were not, don't do it, because at some point it could be. And that's the way they've got to think. Do they ever think, I'm just nipping home, I'm going to have a few beers? Do you think that people will recognise them and do that? It's not fair, it's not nice, it's restrictive. The other side of it is it's their job. So, and if they're high profile, they're well paid, it comes with the territory. So, unfortunately for them, they can't say, I want this, I want that. The other side of it, the troll aspect.
Let's talk about the troll thing, because
they shouldn't have to put it with that, and that's disgusting. I say to people, it goes with the territory. Why does it go with the territory? I use, say, in fact, I use Twitter for this reason or whatever. I don't use it to abuse people I don't know and so on. Fair comment. You wouldn't say that in the street. You wouldn't come up and say to them, I think this, that and the other.
Because that's the thing with you, Brian. You've got 250,000 followers nearly, 250,000. And for the millennials, that's a thing. It might be a thing, it might not be a thing for you, but you go back at these trolls, which I find kind of interesting, but also I think it's right. I think that, if you're looking at the interaction, you've got an opinion, you're a well-educated person, you're one of the few that will go back to a lot of them.
Yeah, the reason I do that is people who say these things assume, a lot of them are anonymous, but they assume that everyone else thinks like that over here. And I happened upon this thing. If you tweet something with a comment that people, and they can see the tweet, then other people come in and they make it quite plain, that it's out of order and so on. So it's not you and so and so. And I just don't see why people, it's a one-way conversation. What this is, a lot of it, say during matches, is the shout at the TV in a pub. You can't, whatever. But it goes straight to you in the same way that a tweet, what a lovely, it goes to you in the same intimate fashion as a nice comment. So on the one hand, it's completely like that. And I back to people, they say, oh, I'm sorry, I was drunk. I didn't think you'd see it or whatever. So on the one hand, you've got the impossibly anonymous. On the other hand, you've got the intimacy. And it's a really unusual thing. It's just strange. People say, well, don't read it then. I said, listen, in 4 lines, you can spot the word cunt very easily, actually. Sorry.
Brian, thank you for chatting
That's okay.
to me. Matt, I could have spoke to you all day.
I'm sorry. That's a problem with me. I can't stop.
No, brilliant. Hopefully we'll chat again. Thank you.
Good luck.